I'm very happy today to share valuable insights together with great pleasure with everyone from Venustesh. As for myself, I am just a very ordinary Tibetan monk. Today, I am here with great enthusiasm to explore new ideas and to communicate with all of you, everyone, about the significance and the important role of Buddhist culture in today's modern business. After this topic was brought up, many people present here might be thinking that Buddhism is about blessing people to get rich and get promoted and helping us live safe and peaceful lives at home, that it's this kind of religion. What direct impact does it actually have on business? Because Buddhism often talks about seeing through and letting go, whereas in business, in a certain sense, as it is often understood, or at least in terms of mindset, it seems to be the opposite. Some people here might have this kind of thought, but what I want to analyze with everyone today is that the teachings of Buddhism may require all of us here to understand them more comprehensively, more thoroughly, historically, and systematically in a more detailed manner. This point is very important because Buddhism is not what a handful of people nowadays advocate or claim it to be in reality. It is actually highly scientific. It is also a global religion that is practiced worldwide. Today, among all the religions that exist in the world, whether in terms of wisdom or great compassion, when compared in various aspects, it truly stands out. Many highly respected and influential people around the world recognize that the wisdom of Buddhism is supreme and unparalleled. At the same time, if we indeed look back at history, throughout history, there have been tens of thousands of people understanding Buddhism through studying Buddhism. Ultimately, they attained a very high level of realization in their own minds. Indeed, such accomplished individuals have numbered in the countless throughout history. In the past, there were innumerable people who reached this kind of state. Even now, there are many people, after studying the Dharma, their own hearts have completely got a unique kind of power. So in the future, as long as humanity continues to exist, I believe that in the future, those who achieve realization through Buddhism will also be countless. Many of the intellectuals present here today should have a positive understanding of Buddhist teachings. This is quite crucial indeed. In fact, regarding Buddhism, many of you here may have heard the saying, do no evil, practice all that is good, purify your own mind. This is the teaching of all Buddhas. There is a specific definition of Buddhism. The definition of Buddhism is to refrain from all evil as much as possible and to do good deeds. When your own mind is tamed, that is Buddhism. Some of us think that what is called Buddhism might simply refer to monks with shaved head. When we talk about Buddhism, we might think of Bodhisattva statues or Buddha images in temples. These are considered Buddhism. But in fact, these are only partial symbols within Buddhism, just partial representation. True Buddhism is actually a very noble system of education. If many of us could truly, in fact, through different means, were to receive such important teachings, your thoughts, your actions, and every aspect of your life would undergo tremendous change. Because of historical reasons, or rather, since the Cultural Revolution, due to causes and conditions in every aspect, many of our young people today, many born in the 70s and 80s, are confused about the so-called Buddhism. Some even dismiss it as mere superstition. I think this is truly a very unfortunate mindset. It's simply an unfair and biased judgment. If those of us present here have the opportunity and the time, I hope you will take the time to learn in detail what Buddhism is really about. Has Buddhism actually contributed to human society or not? Among us Buddhists, I wouldn't dare claim with 100% certainty that every Buddhist has studied well. All Buddhists are dharmically correct, but a considerable number of practitioners, a considerable number of Buddhists far surpass some supposed good people in the world, the so-called kind people, the so-called more sensible people, you could put it that way. Because the people I meet are Buddhists and people of other religions, and there's also a group that can truly be called genuine practitioners. From these practitioners, whether in terms of their thinking or in terms of their entire life goals and sense of purpose, far beyond what we have in our society today, a truly selfish heart. Therefore, Buddhist culture, or in other words, the spirit of Buddhism in its essence, is, in my opinion, truly very much needed in today's society. No matter what kind of person you are, as long as you incorporate Buddhist theory and the Buddhist system of practice into your daily life, each and every day, it will absolutely not have any negative side effects for you. It will not be harmful to your values or your outlook on life. On the contrary, it should bring about tremendous changes in every aspect of your life. Perhaps not everyone present here today is in fact a Buddhist. I think not everyone has to be religious, nor does everyone have to be a Buddhist. But we should also make it clear that some people nowadays feel very proud of not being Buddhist themselves. I have some objections to this kind of thinking, because what kind of knowledge does Buddhism really offer? If there is no faith at all, then what would society become? We would only truly worship money, and our faith in money, our faith in wealth has always been deeply rooted. On the other hand, if we happen to have no faith in any particular religion, we can think about what this means for our society. Humanity has now stepped into the 21st century. For people of the 21st century in the future, from the perspective of material civilization, there may still be some room for development for the time being. But it's also possible that from now on, many economies are declining. According to some Buddhist teachings, all phenomena are impermanent. As everyone knows, when we look back at human history, there was a period of time when Japan's economy was at its peak globally. There was also a time when the US economy was very strong. But later, due to financial crises and various historical reasons, many small and medium-sized enterprises ended up even going bankrupt, and so on. All kinds of tragic stories have continuously reached our ears. What will China's future look like? Do you think? I think it's difficult for anyone to predict whether it's human wealth, reputation, or status. In life, they are like clouds in the sky, or echoes in a valley, or like a rainbow in summer. You could say they change in an instant. This is all phenomena are impermanent in Buddhism. All phenomena are impermanent. That sounds impossible. Right now, all things and events are right before our eyes and to our five senses. They feel completely real, as if they exist unshakably. But if you consider their true nature, or think about the changes that all phenomena undergo, then you will realize that our economy and all the wealth and glory happening around us could very likely disappear in an instant, or even within a very short period of time, can turn into nothing but bubbles, becoming something that leaves no trace at all. So at such times, what is it that we truly need? It is the spiritual education advocated in Buddhism. When it comes to spiritual wealth nowadays, it is something that no one can take away or steal from you, and it is also something that no one can harm. It is an especially precious kind of wealth. I often think that many young people today set all their life goals on wealth, status, and money. With such values, as we can see, if you live your life this way, you will feel really very lost. People should, apart from wealth, status, and external values in their lives, have a kind of vitality within themselves that they can truly grasp. This vitality, perhaps in the past, because of our education, family, and various other reasons, we may not have realized it. Most people enter this world and from elementary school all the way to university, and in every level of society, what is it really like for us humans to come into this world? It's about family, career, status, and wealth. If we grow up within such a concept and educational system, everyone's blessings and karmic conditions and circumstances are indeed different. At a certain point, it's possible, apart from yourself, nothing else truly exists. This is also possible, and history shows us the same thing. Everything that happens around us, all kinds of events also tell us everything is truly an impermanent phenomenon. So at this time, what do we really need? It is a kind of inner strength, a wealth of spirit. I think that Buddhism actually explains this very clearly as well, especially for those of us here today. Whether you believe or not, you must have an altruistic mindset, a mindset of helping others. This is extremely important, truly essential. If you have the intention to help others, even just a little, then whatever you do, absolutely whatever you do, no matter what, on one hand, many resources will, in fact, naturally come to you. Whether you are a leader or an employee or just an ordinary person, if we have a long-term intention in our hearts to help others or to value others, care for others, and not look down on others, then in Buddhism, this is what is called the Mahayana Bodhicitta, or awakened mind. Within the context of the secular world, this stands out as the most successful cause. Those of us here may not realize it right now. When I help others, others may not help me, others may not necessarily notice me. So in reality, when I help others in today's society, where material desires run wild, even some movies and TV shows suggest that very simple and pure people can find a way out in society. In the end, those with great ambition and a particularly ruthless heart, if they use all kinds of illegal means, actually seem to have more prospects and room for development in modern society. So the overall direction of public opinion in society seems to be moving toward the negative side. Things develop negative. Everyone might feel that maybe I have my own chance. Some time ago, I met some young people, and they said that if they do good deeds and act kindly, even though people often talk about learning from Lei Feng, in reality, from what I see around me, judging from my company, my workplace, my family, and all aspects, it seems that people who do good deeds don't get good rewards. Those who misbehave still succeed at work. On the other hand, they have a lot of resources. This society needs a lot of aggressive people, not kind-hearted ones. If you are kind, you end up facing a lot of discrimination and unfair treatment from others. At the time, I said this is just a temporary and very short-sighted perspective. It may seem like you don't see any results from doing good deeds, but in reality, some factors are not things we can perceive with our naked eyes, nor are the things our minds can immediately comprehend. We should look at it through the long-term law of cause and effect. If you do bad things, it may seem like you have a lot of resources in many ways, but over time, you'll see there will be no truly good outcome. Some of you might think that this kind of karmic causality, the so-called karmic causality Buddhism, recognizes we encounter people saying, oh, you Buddhists say, good deeds bring good results, bad deeds bring bad results. You get what you sow. You only acknowledge this point. Actually, in Buddhism, it's fine whether we acknowledge it or not. But the most crucial thing is, in fact, it is truly a natural law of society. It is a law of cause and effect. Whether we Buddhists talk about this law of cause and effect or not, as long as anyone ever does bad things, it will turn into bitter fruit. Sooner or later, you will inevitably experience negative consequences. This is bound to happen. If you do good deeds or often cultivate a kind heart, in the future, you will most likely, at some point, definitely experience happiness as a result. It's just like when we plant good seeds, they will eventually bear their fruit. If we plant poisonous or evil seeds, they will also eventually produce their own kind of result. On this point, perhaps some of us have never law of cause and effect, reincarnation, never analyzed it nor thought about it. Since childhood, we've grown up in a particular family and education environment where a certain set of beliefs has basically constrained us. We've never really considered this aspect. But if you say this is unreasonable, you can't actually provide any evidence or reason for it. If you say it's reasonable, thinking it's just a Buddhist idea, then that's absolutely unreasonable. Therefore, we must understand the law of reincarnation and cause and effect in Buddhism. This kind of law, in fact, for everyone, if we observe very carefully, is not very difficult to understand in your own surroundings. For example, think about it. In a family with 5 or 6 people, each person's physical condition is different, and their mental states are also different. This includes their social status, personal thoughts, wisdom, and appearance. Everything is different. Why is that? The parents are the same, and nowadays, most are only children. But in the past, in earlier times, a family would have many brothers and sisters in the household. Why is it that within one family, each person's situation is different? And even though we are all human beings, within the whole of human society, there are so many strange and unusual things. For example, some people have 3 eyes. Some people have no ears at all. Some people have only 1 eye. And some people's entire legs we know about some people with disabilities. By looking at the physical conditions of many people, we have to acknowledge the cause and effect relationship. This cause and effect relationship means that in each person's previous life, or even in the life before that, the good and bad deeds they committed were different. Though we are all human, one person may do well, he has his own business, he has his own ideas, he has his own inventions, his own creativity. That same person is quite unlucky. And in this life, the conditions and resources should actually be exactly the same. But for some people, no matter what, their causes and conditions are just different. There is a very mysterious and profound cause and effect relationship at play here. Regarding this cause and effect relationship, I hope that sometimes you should think about it carefully. Is this kind of cause and effect relationship something that so-called God or deities deliberately create or arrange for you? That is not the case either. If it were, then for each person, it would mean there is a creator arranging everything, which is also impossible. If there were no causes and conditions at all, then why is it that even though we grow up in the same world, grow up in the same family, and grow up in the same ethnic group, each person's fate, each person's preferences and mental states are all different? This point is explained very clearly in Buddhism. For example, the suffering and happiness you feel are called ripened karmic results in Buddhism. Some of us get seriously ill, but in this lifetime, we haven't really done anything cause you to get sick. However, the karma from your previous life manifests in your body in this life, and all kinds of karma will show up. Some people are born with a particular love for reading. Some people love singing. Some people especially like doing good deeds, and some people like doing bad things. Have you ever thought about why this is? Actually, if you really think about it, In Buddhism, this is called the Nishyanda Phala, result similar to the causes. Similarly, some people live in particularly beautiful environments and always experience especially happy life. Some people grow up in poor environments. The housing conditions of his unit and his residence are very poor. What is the reason for this? There are many reasons. Some people may live in poverty during the first half of their lives, but find joy in the second half. There are all kinds of reasons like this. In Buddhism, we talk about so-called Adipati Phala, dominant results, Purushakara Phala, ripening results, and so on. These analyses of cause and effect are explained very clearly. If any of you here think that the Buddhist teaching on cause and effect, as you may have heard, that the law of cause and effect is only for Buddhists, just a handful of people. This morning we were actually talking about the registration of Buddhists. In China, there are about 100 million. Some previous studies have stated this as well. If you think that this law of cause and effect is only spoken of by Buddhists, that only Buddhism acknowledges this kind of view, actually, aside from these 100 million, the rest of us don't believe in cause and effect. Nothing occurs. This kind of thinking is actually a mistaken idea. Our research on Buddhism should definitely be considered to be quite fair, as well as very thorough and comprehensive. We have investigated many matters in this regard. I hope everyone value Buddhism's law of cause and effect. There is also another type of person who wants to survive in this world. If one doesn't act, heaven destroys them. Support the idea. They say that in order to make a living, people must do all sorts of things. If you don't, even heaven and earth won't tolerate you. So they end up doing many bad things, but actually this explanation is incorrect. For one's own survival and livelihood, one must do things that's okay. But the way you do them should, of course, be entirely reasonable. A nobleman loves wealth, but acquires it rightly. In all aspects, there should be justice is extremely important. The Buddha also said in the sutras, if a person truly loves themselves, all virtuous deeds ought to be practiced. Everyone here likes themselves. We should love ourselves. There shouldn't be anyone who doesn't love themselves. If you truly, really love yourself, then a person's life is indeed limitless. Many of us don't know that people have future lives. When it comes to the next life after this one, people are often confused. This is something you don't know. You haven't confirmed it. Many scientists are currently engaged in heated discussions about this. They acknowledge the existence of past and future lives. And he cited evidence, including memories of past lives. There are a great many cases and a lot of supporting evidence in this area. At this point, for those of us present, if you think that people do not have past or future lives, that is a very, very serious mistake. Indeed, you could say. Now, many of us think that living 100 years, living just one life is enough. But this kind of thinking is indeed the result of many factors, including the environment and other reasons. Whenever I give a speech, no matter where it is, or while talking to everyone, the first thing that comes to my mind is this. Most aren't aware of past and future lives. This, for me personally, is also truly the most deeply painful thing that I carry in my heart. Although on the surface, everyone seems knowledgeable, talented, and very young, and should be considered enviable among humankind. There are countless people like this, so many of them. But sometimes, what kind of thought suddenly arises in me? Since they have some accomplishments in society, achievements in many areas, there's really nothing to be arrogant about, nothing that can truly be considered remarkable. They don't know that they have future lives. So, although humans may seem very smart, in reality, we don't even acknowledge our own future lives, or we simply don't know about them. So, is this not knowing because it doesn't exist? It indeed exists, but we don't know about it. There are two issues. Of course, I've asked many people about this, and in fact, no one can give a reason for its non-existence. But for various reasons, they simply refuse to talk about it. They never discuss what really happens after a person dies. This approach for us humans is a kind of regret. I often think it's quite a pity that so many people don't care at all about their future life. It's like some smart people who care about today, not tomorrow, or only care about their youth and don't care about their old age. It's the same thing. On this point, today, I want to remind everyone that in the future, we should, as human beings, of course, there are many aspects of life in the present that you have to care about. That's something you definitely need to think about. But most importantly, what happens to our soul after we die? This soul follows the good and bad karma we accumulate in this life. It will continue to cycle endlessly in this world. This is absolutely certain. At that time, all the suffering and happiness are actually in our hands right now. So the Buddhist view of cause and effect is not about the good deeds I do today bearing the bad karma I created today will mature immediately today. Nowadays, many people often say this in different situations. If karmic retribution is really true, why is someone immature when he does bad things? If someone does good deeds, why do they still have to suffer? Actually, this is very simple. Buddhist law never says that the results will show when you act. So does the cause and effect in the world. We clearly know that for any cause and effect in the world, if I study, it will take a long time before I can enter university. See the results of my studies, like college acceptance. It's not like I study today and immediately get my exam results today. We have an exam today. It still takes some time before we get our scores. If a farmer plants crops, he sows in the spring, but only sees the harvest in the autumn. Any scientific report or research result, when published, also only comes out after a period of time. So sometimes, simply because we don't understand Buddhism, our judgments about certain things in Buddhism are, in many cases, especially naive. This kind of phenomenon is actually quite common. Overall, many of the problems currently happening in our society today, I think from the perspective of a Buddhist, these are actually not really very big problems. Whether you are a young person or an older person, if you truly apply the spirit of Buddhism in your own life, you will definitely live a very happy life. Of course, in Buddhism, we are not saying that after you study Buddhism, you will never die, never get sick, and never grow old forever. There is simply no such claim. Buddhists and Buddhist practitioners still experience birth, aging, illness, and death like others. But you face birth, aging, sickness, and death wisely and have a very good approach to dealing with them. This is crucial. Nowadays, many people in society, I think, are rather confused. Normally, they are unwilling to think about the many sufferings in the world, such as birth, aging, sickness, and death. But when these things truly happen to them, they find it very hard to face. Some even end up making unwise choices. So in our world, there really are many things that are worth reflecting on through the concepts found in Buddhism. What is it that people in today's society are constantly seeking? Emotions, status, wealth, and so on. But after obtaining these things, are you truly happy? It's hard to say. I remember that in Chinese Buddhism, there was a Chan master named Wu De. One time, 3 young people came to see him. Each of these 3 young people talked about their own interests. Then Master Wu said, "Your values may not necessarily bring real benefit." Later, he asked, "Among the 3 of you, could you please tell me, what does each of you think is the happiest thing in life?" One of them actually felt that the most beautiful and happiest thing in life is love. Another person simply believed that the happiest, most joyful, and most important thing in life is wealth. The third person thought that happiness and joy come from fame and status. Then Master Wu said, with a calm voice, "Of course, there's nothing wrong at all with being attached to these things. After all, people in this world regard them as the most important aspects of life. So it's not unreasonable. But if you don't truly understand the real spirit of giving in love, you may not actually be happy. Relying on it, you might end up being very miserable in this life. If your entire life is constrained by these things, when you haven't yet obtained them, you might feel happy. But when you truly have it, when you really experience love, you may find that it actually feels like shackles that bind you. It might not be fun, you thought. Similarly, when you didn't have wealth before, you might have thought that people with wealth are especially happy. But if you do acquire wealth, yet don't truly understand generosity or the ability to let go, this wealth can actually bring you a great deal of trouble. In the same way, when you don't have status, you may think status is particularly meaningful. But once you have status and fame, that fame can actually become a source of suffering in your life. Then I would offer them guidance. I think that nowadays many people may also be like this. What people are truly pursuing in life is so-called success. Some time ago, I asked students at a school, what is your personal definition of success to you personally? Nowadays, many people keep saying, wonderful to be successful. They pat their chest and say, I'm successful. But does having money really mean you are successful? Is owning a business truly success? Does having a family and so on really mean that you are considered successful in life? Perhaps when you actually achieve these things, if you don't feel a sense of satisfaction or happiness, you will still feel very miserable all the same. For example, if you became the president of a country, would you necessarily be happy? Not necessarily. You might even start to desire all the power in the world. How happy it is to be in my hands. If you controlled a significant portion of the world's wealth, would you really feel satisfied? Would you feel successful? Human desire is like a pit that can never be filled. The more you have, the more your greed grows. When you only had a bicycle, you thought that having a motorcycle would make you happy and joyful. When you have a motorcycle, you think that as long as you have an ordinary car, then you'll surely be happy and satisfied. But even after you get it, it still might not be enough. When you only had a single-story house, you thought that buying an apartment in a nicer neighborhood, feeling satisfied. But after you bought it, you felt that you really should get a villa instead. If you had a villa, no, I might immigrate to Canada. And you should have a nice place in Canada, or in the US, or in every developed country in the world. And if you could have a house in each of the most famous places, I should be the happiest then. So in the few short decades of our lives, it's very likely that we're always in pursuit of something, always living and passing our days in arrogance. If that's the case, then what is the true meaning of life? I think it's really a sense of contentment that's very important. At the same time, our own sense of responsibility towards society and all of humanity, having a responsible attitude and mindset, this is especially important. Because if you truly have a genuine sense of altruism and a deep sense of responsibility, in fact, the law of cause and effect taught in Buddhism, what you have learned will, in due time, naturally come back to you, just as it always does. I recall, as I remember, there was a saying like this in the past, right after the end of World War I. At that time, France, the United Kingdom, the Soviet Union, China, and Germany, these countries were in discussions that if a similar war were to break out in the world again in the future, there must be a central, effective, coordinating international organization, and such an international organization needed to establish a United Nations. When the United Nations was first being considered for establishment, it didn't actually have any real assets. At that time, it didn't even have its own territory. They were looking to see who would take the initiative to make such an announcement. After this news was just released, a wealthy American family known as the Rockefeller family, once made a vow or set an intention. What was the aspiration that Rockefeller family expressed at that time. They bought land for about 8.7 million US dollars, then donated it to the United Nations organization. At that time, many wealthy businessmen in the United States mocked them. These people are extremely stupid. They said the Rockefeller family was actually quite foolish. What is the meaning of such dedication? Giving away all the money they had worked so hard to earn to others, that was a foolish act. At the time, they kept mocking them. But less than a year after the United Nations headquarters was established, the surrounding property prices in the area began to rapidly increase and soar. Wealth started gradually and steadily pouring, flowing abundantly into their family over time. From the perspective of Buddhist views on cause and effect, on the surface, when we give something to others or help others, it may seem like we are losing something or giving something up ourselves. People have this kind of thought. But in fact, when you perhaps look at it from the perspective of cause and effect, the more kindness you develop within yourself, the more benefits you naturally receive yourself. This is the law of cause and effect. It really works this way. On the surface, if you can't even hold on to what you have, how could helping others possibly be beneficial? But in reality, that's absolutely not the case. There is an analogy. A blind person holds a lantern to light the way for others. Some people ask, you are already blind. You have no eyes, so why are you carrying this lantern? They mock him, thinking it's very foolish and silly. But he says, even though I can't see, by holding this lantern to light the way, on one hand, I hope others can see the road, others won't bump into me, others won't bump into other places. I am directly benefiting other seven, though I can't see. I am still helping others. But on the other hand, well, if others don't hit me, it protects me as well. So many of us here, especially the younger generation, now have a particularly weak sense of altruism. Everyone thinks there is a certain kind of expectation or assumption that people tend to have. Isn't this kind of behavior just a superstitious practice of Buddhists? Or perhaps only some people do this when they encounter different or abnormal situations and so on. There are many thoughts like this. In fact, altruism is in our society. This kind of mindset is something that everyone should be encouraged to have. Everyone should really actively promote this attitude, especially in their daily lives. Just now, I saw on your publicity wall some photos of charity activities, and I felt very happy. What made me happy was not that you donated much money. What did you do? Of course, if you have money, if you have the good fortune, that's great too. If you don't have it, I think the most important thing is the willingness to give many people have is important. As long as there is, just as Confucius said, if there is any kind of altruistic ritual anywhere, its spiritual essence will also exist. So if we have a kind of ceremony of compassion, what does this kind of mindset and expression signify? It signifies a company's culture. A company's culture is even more important than some other aspects of the company, including how it treats its employees or its leaders, even more important than some real profits. Of course, if there is no money available at all, or if you simply do not have any funds on hand, many of our groups and communities simply would not be able to survive for a business to make money. I think that's only natural. Some people think that Buddhism teaches us to completely cut off all bad karma, including harsh speech and frivolous talk, to cut them all off. If that's the case, how can a business make money? In fact, when the Buddha was alive, when Shakyamuni Buddha was in the world, in the Buddha's Agama Sutras and Samyuktagama Sutras, Shan, Sheng, Sutran, and many other sutras, there are clear teachings for lay people, including many very clear and detailed instructions with step-by-step guidance regarding various important business matters. There is no opposition to us doing business, nor is opposition to running enterprises. This is already made very clear in the Buddhist scriptures, because as human beings we need to survive, whether by relying on agriculture, animal husbandry, or commerce. So Buddhism does not oppose this. Some of you may think that so-called Buddhism means you have to shave your head and chant Amitabha in a temple, and that lay practitioners should also wear the Hai Ching robe there. But among intellectuals and social groups, not everyone who embodies the spirit of Buddhism is a Buddhist. In fact, that's not true. The truly most noble Buddhists, even in the secular world, on the one hand, move others with their own actions and use conduct to inspire others. This is also extremely important in the present day. It was the same during the Buddha's time. So among the Buddha's disciples, notably Venerable Anathapindika, King Ajatasattu, etc., with respect and honor, there were also many Buddhists among the kings who governed their countries according to the Dharma. Among the elders, there were those who made tremendous contributions to the monastic community. There have always been many such great benefactors in Buddhism. Nowadays, many people think that as soon as Buddhism is mentioned, it means renouncing the world. This is a misguided notion, of course, perhaps simply because I often tell some directors and people who make movies that you portray Buddhism as people become monks when they fail in society. This actually leads to some misunderstandings about monastics. It is caused by the way some of you portray things. I say this quite often, but sometimes I think there's actually nothing wrong with this way of thinking or doing things. Why? Because if you really aren't successful in society, then in the monastery, he can still find a kind of happiness. In many movies and TV shows, when someone ends up in a monastery, they gain a wonderful new lease on life and a renewed sense of purpose. And when they return to society, they can still achieve success. This shows that our Buddhism, when you truly encounter pain and difficulties, you will come to believe in it. Maybe when we were young, or when our careers were especially successful, we didn't really care what Buddhism was about. But once you experience a major emotional blow, or when your family goes through great suffering, you start to think, oh, should I go to the monastery to chant some sutras? Should I pray for the Buddha's blessing? That's just how people are. When you're happy, you don't think of your protector. But when you're in the greatest pain, that's when you remember, oh, should I pray for the Buddha's blessing? Actually, at times like this, the Buddha truly has inconceivable blessings that can help you. But the extent to which you can be helped depends greatly on your own faith. All the faith and wisdom we truly have now are actually parts of the Buddhist spirit. If we understand this systematically, as we often emphasize, everyone should try to learn some Buddhist teaching. If you study Buddhist teachings, then within Buddhism, you can find new perspectives on your values and existence, and in every aspect, discover a new philosophy. This philosophy may far surpass the value of money and status. So sometimes we may easily overlook a great deal of truly precious, very important knowledge and valuable wealth. Where do most people focus their attention? It's on their own personal lives. And within their own lives, the main values they hold are currently situated at the level of material wealth in terms of financial and tangible resources. Very few people care about the spiritual level. Even if they do care, they don't cultivate or train it. This is a kind of poverty, especially noticeable in today's fast-paced world. For many contemporary and technologically advanced modern people should be materially wealthy, but their spirits are indeed very fragile, very pale. With just a little bit of stimulation or pain, they find it unbearable. Why are there more and more people committing suicide in today's society? This is one of the reasons. Therefore, for business success, for company success, a certain spirit is actually needed. I think this is very important. If you have this spirit, will it affect your success, your future, your destiny in any way? It won't have impact. There are many Buddhists in modern society today. They are both highly successful people and deeply devout Buddhists. For example, as Ji Xianling once mentioned, there's Kazuo Inamori from Japan. I often read some of his books. He is actually both a philosopher and an entrepreneur. How did his own company actually achieve success? Those of you present should know that in Japan there is a saying about the four great sages. They are Matsushita, Sony, Honda, and Kyocera. The four founders of these companies are all considered to have miraculously built up their enterprises. That's why they're called the four great sages. Among these four great sages, the Kazuo Inamori I just mentioned earlier once temporarily became a monk for a short period of time. What are his specific business philosophy and core corporate values in detail? They are, in essence, altruism and self-interest. Benefiting others is the same as benefiting oneself. This is something we might not usually imagine, but every time he took over any company, without exception, he would always put helping others first. If he could help others, then he would take on the responsibility himself. For example, a few years ago, when Japan Airlines went bankrupt and was on the verge of collapse, it had apparently already lost more than $2 billion. At that time, he stepped in to take over. In less than a year, in just a short period of time, it became the #1 airline in the global aviation industry. It was a miraculous achievement. When many journalists asked him about it, he simply felt that when he first took over the company, he was driven by an altruistic mindset. He would reflect on himself, I am now running this business and doing this job for the benefit of others. If it truly benefited others and there was not a trace of selfishness, then he would take it on. Later on, he also often came to China to give lectures. There was a period when he briefly became a monk. During his short time as a monk, he also firmly believed that life should have a plan. He believed that from age 1 to 20, one should pursue education and acquire knowledge. From age 20 to 60, during the years of career success, one should make some contributions to human society. From age 60, if one lives to 80, this period should be used to prepare for one's future life. Time for virtuous deeds. That is why he later became a monk for a short period. And during his time as a monk, he himself said that he took a begging bowl for alms. He had such a large business, but later became a practitioner. He put everything aside for the time being and went out to beg for alms. Once he failed to achieve the goal, he felt extremely distressed. He had nothing to eat, and he was so hungry he couldn't stand it. At that moment, an elderly woman who was sweeping the street gave him 100 yen. He used that to buy something to eat. He said that in his entire life, he would never forget this experience. He felt that when people are in pain, if someone shows kindness, that is the most precious thing of all. So he felt that charity work is indeed very important and provides tremendous help. Returning to what I was saying earlier, I want to take a moment to once again highlight the importance of Inamori's spirit, as it truly, I think it's something that honestly many of us should really truly reflect on, perhaps even in our own lives. Some of his books have also been translated into Chinese, and I've read a few of them. Indeed, whether we are running a business or working in any kind of profession in the world, if we regard Buddhism as a kind of culture and apply this culture to our lives, not only will it do you no harm whatsoever, but it will also benefit you both spiritually and in your actions, earning you the recognition and trust of others. When a person has gained trust, over time, everything they do becomes much easier. I really went to Hong Kong that day. In some schools in Hong Kong, it's like this. Some of the dedicated teachers and professors in their schools, if they have faith, all the school's finances are entrusted to them to manage. Everyone truly has a sense of trust in them. Many of those in charge of finances are often chosen from people with faith. If someone doesn't have faith, people feel uneasy because they don't believe in anything. In this case, there may not be anyone who doesn't care about money, so they're a bit worried. If someone doesn't have religious faith, they're a bit concerned. Many professors have told me that over here, some of our ideas are a bit different from those in mainland China. Although Hong Kong has now returned to China, some of our concepts are still a bit different. I ask why? Because over there, if someone has faith, people tend to worry about it. They wonder if that person has mental issues or if they're a bit abnormal. Because someone believes in a religion, many people are quite concerned about them. But over here, people with faith are seen as trustworthy enough to be put in charge of important matters, including finances. So in every place and region, when it comes to values, lifestyle, and various traditions, there is still room for communication and exchange in many different aspects. In particular, I think that nowadays, including in the business world, there was a period online when people specifically debated whether entrepreneurs should have faith or whether companies should have faith. At that time, basically, 95% of people online said that every company must simply have a religious faith. If there is no religious faith, many arguments were made that it would be considered unacceptable or inappropriate for a variety of reasons, in various ways. So, in fact, we have not emphasized that everyone must have faith, because faith itself is a matter of personal freedom. Just like the Japanese sage I mentioned earlier, in his business, there is no emphasis on faith. He himself was a devout Buddhist, but he never emphasized or required that they must believe in Buddhism or follow any other religion. He did not do that. So what did he require? He insisted everyone should believe good deeds are rewarded, evil deeds are punished. Secondly, everyone must do things that benefit others. Don't spend all your time just pursuing your own interests and doing all sorts of unreasonable things for your own gain. If a person spends a long time only doing things for themselves and never does anything for the benefit of others, it's very likely that at a certain point, all of one's misdeeds will be completely and fully exposed. So in today's society, I personally believe that we really truly need the concepts of Buddhist culture. This kind of thinking is something everyone needs to gradually come to understand. After really understanding it, you should first reflect on it. After reflecting, you can decide whether to accept it or not. Actually, if you do accept it, I truly feel that sometimes the Buddhist philosophy can bring a gentle, calming peace to your restless mind. Buddhist philosophy teaches us to feel gratitude toward everyone who deserves our thanks. Buddhist thought gently allows our weary hearts each day to find rest, peaceful relaxation, often keeping us in a peaceful state of tranquility and calm. Sometimes, for those of us living in big cities, we are indeed exhausted by work, family, marriage, and so on, such as daily responsibilities, and may be worn out by all sorts of things. You could say that every day is especially exhausting. But what is the result of all this exhaustion? When will we truly be able to rest? If your own mind is not adjusted right now, you may never really find rest. I see some elderly people also lack a sense of belonging inside, and they feel very deeply pained and extremely sad. There are often many feelings of despair in life. This is exactly why we need a kind of spiritual nourishment from Buddhism. I often find myself especially envious of some practitioners. Some practitioners, even though they don't have such material conditions, still feel especially at ease in their hearts. In our Tibetan region, there are many dedicated practitioners, and from a material standpoint, their lives are very simple. Basically, they just have enough to eat and wear to stay warm. But mentally, they are especially relaxed without excessive pressure. Where does pressure come from? Pressure comes from attachment. If we become increasingly attached to any career or aspect of life, then naturally, as people often say nowadays, the mountain of pressure builds up. No matter who you are, the pressure really does become overwhelming. It keeps weighing you down until in the end you can't even move. But this sense of ease can be found everywhere in Buddhist thought. It's fully accessible. So I often think for those of us living in big cities, you see through the mundane world come to the temple or retreat to a quiet place in Tibet or the Han regions. That is too is unrealistic. Because you have your own family, you have your social responsibilities and family obligations. So in this sense, it's also not realistic. However, if on one hand you can embrace aspects of Buddhist culture and gain some knowledge that nourishes the mind, and on the other hand, you can face your life and work with a sense of ease, then at that moment, you will naturally feel that even though there are so many cars outside, so many people, so many things going on, plus all kinds of complicated thoughts and competition in such a society as this, your mind can remain calm no matter when or where you are. This remedy for inner peace is actually not hard to obtain within Buddhism. In Buddhism, stories about eminent monks and great masters are often told, including many great masters from our Tibetan Buddhism who have gone to the West, to places like the United States and Canada to spread the teachings. When my own teacher, the Dharma King Rinpoche, went to America, I went along with him. At that time, I noticed that there was quite a number of successful people in America then. These successful individuals, in terms of financial strength, had no need to worry about their livelihood for the rest of their lives. They had sufficient wealth. But what does he need now? He needs the wealth of ideas. They relied on the teachings of some great masters and lamas of Tibetan Buddhism, regularly practicing and gradually applying them in their own lives, and ultimately they truly attained immense happiness. There are many, many such people indeed. Nowadays, in our Han regions, many people also rely on the causes and conditions of both Tibetan Buddhism and Chinese Buddhism. Many people, while achieving success in their careers, and working diligently hard in their jobs, he can also have the opportunity to practice without leaving his family. There are also opportunities to study. In fact, this kind of study has nothing to do with others. For example, for Buddhists, if there are tens of thousands of you studying the Dharma, we rejoice as well. If someone doesn't have it, it doesn't really do us any harm, in fact, either. Because whether I can study is my own business, and if you study or not is personal. But for you personally, perhaps in today's society, in your own experience, encountering the Dharma and understanding it in a positive way can indeed be helpful for your life. If you have this kind of education or mindset, even just a little bit, your work will also become much easier. Actually, people nowadays can't possibly leave their jobs. And furthermore, in the course of the 21st century that lies ahead in the future, it's very likely that the pace of work will get faster and people will become more and more exhausted. At such times, if you have your own personal religion or Buddhist methods to cultivate the mind and well-being, then your mindset should be very joyful and happy. If your mindset is happy, no matter how tiring or busy your work is, you'll feel it's a kind of enjoyment. You always treat the company and your work as if they were truly your own business. Actually, this is something I have truly felt myself. Some people might think as employees that they are just working for their boss each and every day in their usual roles, and the boss thinks the employee is only there for the salary. This kind of mindset is simply not correct. It should be that all of us are really working together on this matter as a team for society, for the benefit of all sentient beings. If you can't quite grasp the idea of all sentient beings, then at least for humanity. If we treat our work as a kind of enjoyment, then both us and others can live happily. In fact, we have a real collective spirit and philosophy. If this exists within the company culture, then none of us will feel any pressure, especially when this core value of altruism is present at the heart of our actions. Everyone working hard together should really be a very happy and joyful thing. So today, I honestly actually didn't really prepare all that much. There have always been all sorts of different things always happening and going on. I think that, well, many of us here today, if you have any suggestions or questions of any kind for each other, if you would like, we can all discuss them together in detail and at length. As for my thoughts, I especially hope that many young people, while you are not yet old and decrepit, before your memory and willpower start to decline, we have a great Buddhism in this world. In Buddhism, in fact, for humanity, it truly brings a great deal of happiness and joy. It depends on whether we ourselves can accept it. If you accept it through faith, with an open heart, you become a true Buddhist. If you don't believe in it, don't have faith in it, but you study and learn about it from an academic perspective, even though you are not a Buddhist, you will still know that in this world there is something that can truly unravel the mysteries of humanity and the universe. Such a profound science as this, whether in terms of breadth or depth. Now, as scientists study Buddhism more and more, they are getting closer and closer to the principles of Buddhism. More than 2,500 years ago. This was the earliest era of civilization. Yet at that time, such a noble science already existed. This is the Buddhist thought of our Eastern culture. This is something that notably even Western thinkers like Aristotle and Plato, for example, have considered could not find at all in their philosophies. This is something that many scientists and thinkers from both the East and West today are constantly exploring, and they all find it astonishing. Back in the time of Shakyamuni Buddha, in fact, at that time, in terms of science, fields like quantum mechanics, physics and chemistry simply did not exist. But why is it that the principles taught in Buddhism at that time can completely align with our later modern scientific concepts? They keep up with them, but many of these principles are explained with great clarity in Buddhism. But in other religions, these ideas are not necessarily interpreted in this way. Of course, I don't deny that they might also have such interpretations. However, within Buddhism, I've spent my whole life studying this field. I am very interested in this area. So I personally also feel that indeed, whether in terms of the depth and breadth of wisdom, or in terms of compassion and equality for humanity, or in terms of filial piacere, of the noble teachings among humankind, all of them can be found one by one within Buddhism. And as for things that are harmful to human society, up to now, it seems that currently, I have indeed gone through all the Buddhist scriptures and treatises carefully and thoroughly, and I have not found any. It is harmful to our society in many ways, whether to the body or to the mind. Ideas or writings that are harmful to the entire community, I have never found them in the vast ocean of Buddhist texts. So I am actually not just trying to fool you at all today. The more I read Buddhist scriptures and treatises, including the teachings of eminent monks and great masters, as well as the treatises carefully composed by renowned and respected Indian sages after the Buddha, I am truly moved. The more I read, the more touched I feel, and the more surprised I become. Why is it that such noble thoughts exist among humankind? We humans should strive for such lofty ideals, but many people are simply starving. There are delicious dishes right next to them, yet they never try them. What a pity. I often find myself feeling this way more often than I would like. So, for each and every one of you present here today, if in the future you have the time, interest, and all the right conditions, explore the relevant Buddhist scriptures and treatises as much as possible. And furthermore, if you develop faith in this area, if you have an even deeper conviction and sense of joy within yourself, realization and attainment in Buddhism, the realization in Buddhism cannot be expressed with words. When you truly and deeply savor everything that is found within the teachings of Buddhism, you might not even want to look at all the beauties of the world, because of all the wonderful beauties in the world are simply no match for the experiences within our own minds. The incredibly wonderful and truly fascinating objects discovered in the mind are far beyond what words can describe. These are the experiences of a very few individuals who have attained realization, some of their states of mind. Therefore, we especially hope that many people will study Buddhism and attain mastery in it. Of course, whether it is all the attainments or realizations in Buddhism, the goal is to benefit sentient beings with altruism as a focus. If you were to sum up the entire essence of Buddhism, the two words, benefiting others, apart from benefiting others, even when the Buddha attained enlightenment, there was no other activity besides benefiting others. So, this kind of altruism, no matter in what context, if we put it into practice, this is a remarkable manifestation of the highest spirit of Buddhism in its purest form. I think that's about all I have to say at this point. If there are any questions next, let's discuss them together, all right?